the fact that health care in America, that the Medicaid is a question of life or death. And when asked by one of her constituents about the concern that was had, the fact that people will die as a result of the devastating cuts to Medicaid and health care that are in Donald Trump's one big ugly bill, Senator Ernst says, we're all going to die anyway. Yes, Joni, the American people understand that at some point all of us will transition. But the American people do not deserve to die as a result of the Republican cruelty that is in this legislation. Do not deserve to die as a result of the cruelty that is embedded, Mr. Speaker, in this legislation. Ending Medicaid as we know it, the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. And as a result of this all-out assault on health care in America, and Mr. Speaker, there are 220 Republicans who I serve with in this Congress, and I wish I had time to go through the impact in all 220 districts. Actually, since I have unlimited time, maybe I do. But, Mr. Speaker, I figured that, I'll start in my home state of New York. Mr. Speaker, in New York's 1st Congressional District, represented by our colleague, Congressman Nick LaLota, approximately 50,000 New Yorkers will lose their health care. In New York's 24th Congressional District, Mr. Speaker, represented by our colleague, Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, over 30,000 New Yorkers will lose their health care. In parts of Western New York, an upstate district, New York 23, currently represented by Congressman Nick Langworthy, approximately 35,000 New Yorkers will lose their health care as a result of Trump's one big ugly bill. In New York 17, currently represented by Congressman Mike Lawler, more than 30,000 New Yorkers will lose their health care. In New York 21, the North Country, represented by Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, welcome back to Congress. I'm sorry it did not work out for you. That's a lesson that should be learned by all those who pledge fealty to the wannabe king.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
But I digress. New York's 21st Congressional District, currently represented by Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, approximately 44,000 New Yorkers will lose their health care. In Long Island, Suffolk County, part of Long Island, currently represented in Nassau County by two amazing colleagues, Tom Swazi and Laura Gillen. But in Suffolk County, New York's 2nd Congressional District, currently represented by Congressman Andrew Garbarino, 48,000 New Yorkers will lose their health care. In Suffolk County, in New York's 2nd Congressional District, as a result of Trump's one big ugly bill. And in the 11th Congressional District, a district that includes all of Staten Island, a district, Mr. Speaker, currently represented by Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, more than 50,000 New Yorkers will lose their health care as a result of Donald Trump's one big ugly bill on Staten Island and in New York's 11th Congressional District. I don't think the Wu-Tang Clan would approve of that. It's incredible to me. In district after district after district, Mr. Speaker, represented by my Republican colleagues, so many Americans will stand to lose their health care as a result of Donald Trump's one big ugly bill. Now, this is not just a Democratic perspective. We stand by that perspective. We'll continue to articulate that view and forcefully defend the health care of the American people, but it's not just a Democratic perspective. And so I thought that it was important that we enter into the record some of the words, Mr. Speaker, of members of the House Republican Conference who wrote directly to you, Mr. Speaker, in their own words, talking about the challenges of this one big ugly bill. February 19th of this year, in a letter written to the Honorable Mike Johnson, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. The subject line was, "Protecting American Communities in the Budget Reconciliation Process." For all of the American people who may be watching the floor of the House of Representatives right now, that's the process that we're in. It's one big ugly bill. Mr. Speaker, Republicans chose to go down this road because Republicans are uninterested in actually trying to find bipartisan solutions to solving problems on behalf of the American people. And so we're in this budget reconciliation process that can avoid the filibuster in the United States Senate. And Republicans, Mr. Speaker, have been uninterested in trying to actually find bipartisan common ground. We're the party of common sense. Let's be clear about that. I'm going to be spending some time on the road talking about what common sense really is all about. Common sense certainly is not taking health care away from the American people. And so in this letter on February 19th, and I got a lot of statements that have been entered into the record, but I figured we'd start with this one. February 19th, Dear Speaker Johnson, as members of the Congressional Hispanic Conference, that's different than the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus right now is fighting hard on behalf of the health care of the American people. On the Democratic side, call that the real CHC. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus is fighting hard on behalf of the American people. But this is a letter as members of the Congressional Hispanic Conference. Mr. Speaker, as you know, these are Republicans here in the House of Representatives. And those who represent sizable Hispanic populations. We are writing to express our concerns regarding possible funding decisions stemming from the House Budget Resolutions Committee instructions advanced on February 13, 2025. Those budget instructions, by the way, were what set this whole toxic process in motion that has resulted in this moment that we find ourselves in right now on the floor of the House of Representatives, connected to this one big, ugly bill. And in this letter, it says that while we fully support efforts to rein in wasteful spending and deliver on President Trump's agenda, let me park right there parenthetically for a moment. Nothing in this bill is about waste, fraud, and abuse. Nothing is doing anything meaningful about waste, fraud, and abuse. The letter continues, it is imperative that we do not slash programs that support American communities across our nation. It then goes on to say that the House Budget Resolution proposed $880 billion in cuts to programs under the jurisdiction of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, with Medicaid expected to bear the brunt of these reductions. Their words, not our words. Nearly 30% of Medicaid enrollees are Hispanic Americans, and for many families across the country, Medicaid is their only access to health care. Slashing Medicaid would have serious consequences, particularly in rural and predominantly Hispanic communities, where hospitals and nursing homes are already struggling to keep their doors open. Mr. Speaker, these are members of the House Republican Conference warning about the devastating impacts of this one big, ugly bill. It goes on to say that the House Committee on Education and the Workforce has been tasked with cutting $330 billion where federal aid for higher education, such as Pell Grants, may be a target for reductions. Once again, let me park right there parenthetically to make the observation. This bill also assaults higher education in the United States of America. That's a disgrace. And Mr. Speaker, members of the House Republican Conference predicted that that would occur. Their words, not our words. House Committee on Education and the Workforce has been tasked with cutting $330 billion where federal aid for higher education, such as Pell Grants, may be a target for reductions. Hispanic students make up a significant share of Pell Grant recipients, many of whom are first-generation college students. striving for a better future for themselves, their families, and our nation. If we are serious about empowering the next generation and strengthening our workforce, we must facilitate and not undermine opportunities that help students succeed. Finally, the House Committee on Agriculture has been directed to cut $230 billion. And then, Mr. Speaker, our Republican colleagues go on to write, while we fully support efforts to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse, by the way, that's all fake, we support a federal government that's effective, that's efficient, that's equitable, that eliminates waste, fraud, and abuse. That's not what this bill is all about. But it goes on to say, while we fully support efforts to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse, we must ensure that assistance programs such as SNAP remain protected. I mean, I'm just confused. Remain protected, as nearly 22% of Hispanic families rely on this critical program as a temporary safety net during difficult times. And then this letter concludes, written to you, Mr. Speaker, by the Congressional Hispanic Conference. Hispanic Americans are the future of the Republican Party. I'll reserve judgment on that statement. As House Democrats, we're going to fight for every single community. That's right. In the United States of America, including the Hispanic community. Every single community. We want every single community to experience the good life, to afford to be able to live the good life. That's what we want. For every single community, good paying job, good housing, good health care, good education for your children, and a good retirement. That's what we want for every community. But the Congressional Hispanic Conference, they write, in closing to you, Mr. Speaker, that these Hispanic Americans are closely watching to see if we will govern in a way that honors their values and delivers results. Just to make sure that appropriate authorship is conferred, I'm going to enter the names of the signatories to this extraordinary letter. Mr. Speaker, Tony Gonzalez, Nicole Maliatakis, Monica de la Cruz, David Valadeo, who represents more Medicaid recipients than any other member of Congress, Juan Ciscomani, Rob Bresnahan, what a beauty, James Moylan, Kimberlyn King Hines. They all signed this letter. And the question that many Americans have to ask right now is that after signing a letter indicating your commitment, Mr. Speaker, to protecting Medicaid and SNAP and access to affordable higher education through Pell Grants, how is it possible that, Mr. Speaker, some of our Republican colleagues will turn around and devastate Medicaid, devastate supplemental nutritional assistance, and devastate the ability of Hispanic communities to achieve the type of upward mobility, in part through higher education, that is talked about in this letter. That letter was written in February. And then we go to March. Can I talk about it? I mentioned, Mr. Speaker, I'm here to take my sweet time on behalf of the American people. And so on March 9th, there's a letter that's written to Ways and Means Chairman Jason Smith, Mr. Speaker. By my count, 21 Republicans signed this letter. And it's about the importance of the clean energy economy in the United States of America. I would assume, based on this letter, that all of the signatories to this particular piece of correspondence are now horrified by the attack on clean energy jobs, and the clean energy economy in this one big ugly bill. But we'll see shortly, because everyone is going to have to go on record. But in this particular letter, written on March 9th, Mr. Speaker, 21 members of the House Republican Conference write to Chairman Jason Smith. Countless American companies are utilizing sector-wide energy tax credits, many of which have enjoyed broad support in Congress to make major investments in domestic energy production and infrastructure for traditional and renewable energy sources alike. Both our constituencies and the energy industry alike remain concerned about disruptive changes to our nation's energy tax structure. With all this in mind, the letter continues toward the end. We request that any proposed changes to the tax code be conducted in a targeted and pragmatic fashion that promotes conference priorities without undoing current and future private sector investments, which will continue to increase domestic manufacturing, promote energy innovation, and keep utility costs down. I mean, the language that was chosen there is pretty interesting, but the translation is protect the clean energy economy. That's what this letter was all about. Written by my count, 21 House Republicans. Mr. Speaker, Andrew R. Garbarino, Jennifer Kiggins, Juan Ciscomani, Gabe Evans, David Valadeo. What a prolific writer. Mark Amadei, Michael Lawler, Young Kim, Don Bacon, Vince Fong, Jeff Hurd, Tom H. Kane Jr., Nick LaLota, John James, Ryan McKenzie, Rob Bresnahan, Marionette J. Miller Meeks, Earl L. Buddy Carter, Dan Newhouse, Eric Harshen, and David P. Joyce, all writing in support of a clean energy economy. We as House Democrats, we know that there's an all-of-above approach that is underway right now, but we support wind and solar energy, renewable energy, because renewable energy is cheaper energy, and cheaper energy means reducing the high cost of living for everyday Americans. That's what we as House Democrats support. And yet, I'm perplexed because this letter was written, but the one big ugly bill represents an extraordinary and unprecedented assault on clean energy and cheaper energy in the United States of America. Mr. Speaker, I asked the question, what are those 21 Republicans going to do when it comes to voting for this one big ugly bill? And then we've got another letter in April. So we've got a February letter, a March letter, an April letter. Quite elegant with these letters. April 14th, 2025, this is correspondence written by 13 House Republicans, Mr. Speaker. Written to you and Steve Scalise. Majority Leader written to Tom Emmer. The Majority Whip, and written to Brent Guthrie, the Chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee. It says, as members of Congress who helped deliver a Republican majority, many of us representing districts with high rates of constituents who depend on Medicaid, we would like to reiterate our strong support for this program. By the way, a program that the one big ugly bill now will cut and devastate, gut, Mr. Speaker, by almost $1 trillion. In this letter, 13 Republicans say we would like to reiterate our strong support for this program that ensures our constituents have reliable health care. Balancing the federal budget must not come at the expense of those who depend on these benefits for their health and economic security. Mr. Speaker, that's their words, not our words. And then this bill makes an extraordinary declaration. And I think it's important for us to understand who led this bill. David Valadao. These are just facts, Mr. Speaker. Publicly issued letters. David Valadao, Don Bacon, Jeff Van Drew, Rob Bresnahan, Juan Ciscomani, Jen Kiggins, Young Kim, the usual suspects. Robert J. Whitman, Nicole Malliotakis, Nick LaLota, Andrew R. Garbarino, Jeff Hurd, and Michael V. Lawler. By my count, 13 members. And in some of the relevant portions of this letter, it says to strengthen Medicaid, we urge you to prioritize care for our nation's most vulnerable populations. Our constituents are asking for changes to the healthcare system that will strengthen the healthcare workforce, offer low-income, working-class families expanded opportunities to save for medical expenses, support rural and underserved communities, and help new mothers. And in the second paragraph of this letter dated April 14, 2025, Mr. Speaker, these 13 members of the House Republican Conference make this extraordinary representation. It says, however, we cannot and will not support a final reconciliation bill that includes any reduction in Medicaid coverage for vulnerable populations. This bill represents the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. It will devastate vulnerable populations all across America. And so the reality is, all 212 House Democrats are going to stand up and protect the health care of the American people. We're going to protect the Medicaid of the American people against this assault on vulnerable communities. And I'm looking forward to all 13 of you joining us to protect the health care of the American people that you represent. That's the promise, Mr. Speaker, that your Republican colleagues made in this April letter. What's changed? We're looking forward to all 13 Republicans in this letter joining us to protect the Medicaid of the American people. And you know, this SALT issue is also an interesting one. Statement was issued on May 8th from my colleagues in the New York delegation: Elise Stefanik, Andrew Garbarino, Nick LaLota, Mike Lawler. Just facts right now. Big talk about standing up to protect the state and local tax deduction. And what's interesting, let's make sure we set the record straight here. As to what happened to the state and local tax deduction, which impacts millions of hardworking American taxpayers all across the country, including in the districts represented by the individuals that I just named. The state and local tax deduction was decimated, Mr. Speaker, by Donald Trump, House Republicans, and Senate Republicans in 2017 in connection with the GOP tax scam that callously and unnecessarily imposed a $10,000 cap, wiping away thousands of dollars a year for hardworking American taxpayers. Republicans did that. Mr. Speaker, let's set the record straight. And so, Mr. Speaker, there are people in this chamber claiming to be saviors. Saving what? From the devastation that Republicans have wrought by decimating the state and local tax deduction? And you know what's interesting about this is that people who are against this claim that the state and local tax deduction is subsidizing states in certain places to the detriment of others. But every single state that suffered from the Republican effort, Mr. Speaker, under Donald Trump's presidency in 2017 to decimate the state and local tax deduction, every single state is a donor state, sends more money to the federal government than we ever get back in return. A donor state. Some people in this town running around misrepresenting the facts. We're okay to be a donor state, but don't lie to the American people about the reality of the state and local tax deduction. And then you have this extraordinary statement on May 8th, big talk, no action. I guess in Texas they say all hat, no cattle. And so that brings us to this letter that was written prolific writers, Mr. Speaker, in the House Republican Conference on June 6th. I'm really confused by this combination of this particular letter, followed by an interesting statement that was made after the Senate passed Donald Trump's One Big Ugly Bill by Lisa Murkowski. And maybe somebody, Mr. Speaker, can help me reconcile these statements. Because all of us in the House and in the Senate were independently elected to stand up on behalf of our constituents in the chambers that we serve in. I'm going to get back to that point momentarily. So in the House, we passed this One Big Ugly Bill initially in late May. It devastated Medicaid, devastated nutritional assistance, devastated the clean energy economy that actually is benefiting red state after red state after red state in the United States of America. And so members of the House Republican Conference wrote to Majority Leader Thune and Chairman Crapo. This is after passing a bill in the House of Representatives that devastated the clean energy tax cuts that they are talking about in this letter on June 6th. It says, as members of the House Republican Conference, we write to express our continued support for common sense energy policy and to urge the Senate to substantively and strategically improve clean energy tax credit provisions included in the House-passed reconciliation bill. I mean, what is happening right now? Maybe I don't understand the legislative process. So in this letter, it goes on to say, in relationship to a bill that every single signatory signed and voted for. Our position has always been that the energy tax code should be modernized in a way that promotes fiscal responsibility and business certainty. Fully realizing that balance requires improvements to the House-passed version of H.R. 1. We believe that the Senate now has a critical opportunity to restore common sense and deliver a truly pro-energy growth final bill that protects taxpayers while also unleashing the potential of U.S. energy producers, manufacturers, and workers. In other words, every single one of these signatories, Jen Kiggins, Brian Fitzpatrick, Juan Ciscomani, Nick LaLota, Mike Lawler, Andrew Garbarino, Don Bacon, Mark Amadei, Gabe Evans, Young Kim, David Valadeo, Rob Bresnahan, and Thomas H. Kane, Jr. Every single one of these signatories voted for a House bill that undermined the clean energy economy, noted that it would hurt their own constituents, voted for the bill anyway, and then begged the Senate to make a difference. That's not how we should be legislating in the United States House of Representatives. That's not how you legislate, particularly when every single House Democrat voted against the bill. It left the House, limped out of the House by a single vote. So every single signatory on this letter could have stopped the bill that you yourself, Mr. Speaker, indicated the signatories of this letter damaged the very thing they claim to be fighting for. I'm confused, perplexed, flummoxed at what the heck is going on. Extraordinary. I mean, I'm just overwhelmed by the amount of correspondence. I had to just pick out the ones that were most extraordinary to make sure that they were entered into the record. The most recent one on the subject of Medicaid was written on June 24th. It was directed to the Honorable John Thune, Majority Leader of the United States Senate, the Honorable Mike Johnson, Mr. Speaker, Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, I think it had, by my count, 16 members. No surprise, y'all. It was authored by David Valadao. I mean, these letters can make up a book, Mr. Speaker. David Valadao, Juan Ciscomani, Rob Bresnahan. Mr. Speaker, these are just facts. Chuck Edwards, Young Kim, Andrew Garbarino, Mike Lawler, Jen Kiggins, the gang is all here again. Jeff Van Drew, Don Bacon, Dan Newhouse, Zach Nunn, Robert J. Whitman, Nicole Maliatakis, Marionette J. Miller Meeks, and Jeff Hurd. 16 members, Mr. Speaker, of the House Republican Conference, in a letter written to you, Mr. Speaker, and the Honorable John Thune, Majority Leader of the United States Senate, on June 24th, and here's the most extraordinary statement that was written in this letter. In the second to last paragraph, I think we call that the penultimate paragraph. In the second to last paragraph, it says, protecting Medicaid is essential for the vulnerable constituents we were elected to represent. Therefore, we cannot support a final bill that threatens access to coverage or jeopardizes the stability of our hospitals and providers. Mr. Speaker, 16 members of the House Republican Conference, who just a few days ago made clear on the record that they will not support devastating cuts to Medicaid. 16 members. All we need, Mr. Speaker, are 4 Republicans from this group to join us, and we can stop these devastating cuts to Medicaid. Join us. Join us. Join us. We welcome you with open arms into the warm embrace of members of Congress who are here to protect the health care of the American people. Just 4 y'all, we welcome you with open arms into the warm embrace of members of Congress determined to protect the health care of the American people.
It's 4.
All we need are 4. And so many of y'all are on record. So as I conclude this section of this particular presentation, and we still got some ground to cover, we're going to continue as House Democrats to take our sweet time on behalf of the American people, because the issues are too significant to ever walk away from. I just want to turn to a statement that was issued by Senator Lisa Murkowski. I want to give some love to the other side of the Capitol. And again, Mr. Speaker, these are just the words that were issued. I'm not even trying to characterize the words. But the American people need to hear these words. from the people that was sent to Congress to protect their interests. Senator Lisa Murkowski says this was one of the hardest votes I have taken during my time in the Senate. Let me just editorialize there briefly. This should not be a hard vote, Senator Murkowski. This should be a hell no vote on behalf of the people you were sent to Washington to represent. It's a hell no vote for us because we're standing up on behalf of the American people. It should be a hell no vote. But, Mr. Speaker, these are the words. Senator Murkowski says this was one of the hardest votes I have taken during my time in the Senate. And then she keeps it real. As far as I can tell, she says, but let's not kid ourselves. This has been an awful process.
That's right.
Mr. Speaker, those are the words of a Republican senator, not us. This has been an awful process, a frantic rush to meet an artificial deadline that has tested every limit of this institution. While we have worked to improve the present bill for Alaska, it is not good enough for the rest of our nation. And we all know it. Yes, Senator Murkowski, we all know this one big, ugly bill will devastate everyday Americans across this country. And yet, in the concluding paragraph, this comes after Senator Murkowski voted for this bill, the deciding vote in the United States Senate, says my sincere hope is that this is not the final product. This bill needs more work across chambers and is not ready for the president's desk. We need to work together to get this right. So let me get this straight. I think the number was 16 House Republicans, Mr. Speaker, vote for a bill they know will hurt the communities, Mr. Speaker, that they represent. Vote for the bill anyway, when any one of them could have stopped this bill from ever leaving the House of Representatives, and then write a letter to the senators in the other side of the Capitol saying, fix this bill. When any single one of them could have stopped the bill dead in its tracks. And then Senator Murkowski, in her chamber, turns out to be the deciding vote for a bill that she says, Mr. Speaker, is not good enough for the rest of the nation, and we all know it, votes for it anyway, and then begs the House to fix the bill. That is not how the people's business should be done in the United States Congress. We have a responsibility to stand up for what is right and stand up for what is right in the chamber that we serve in. That's what we should all be doing. And so our House Republican colleagues, Mr. Speaker, have one last opportunity to join us as Democrats. Every single Democrat who's going to stand up and protect the health care of the American people, stand up and protect the nutritional assistance of the American people, stand up and protect our farmers, stand up and protect our veterans, stand up and protect the clean energy economy, stand up to protect our public schools. Every single one of my House Republican colleagues have the opportunity now in this chamber, not the other chamber, in this chamber, to join us as Democrats and stand up for what is right. The eyes of America are watching. Started this process, Mr. Speaker, 3:28 in the morning, this debate. Took to the House floor, maybe an hour and a half after that. And we still have a lot to say. On behalf of the American people. For such a time as this, every single one of us have an opportunity to stand up for what is right here in the United States of America. I want to speak for just a few moments about some of the people who've been targeted in a callous way by this administration, some of the stories that need to be told on behalf of the American people. I mentioned, of course, Mr. Speaker, throughout this process, we have been thankful for the stories shared by everyday Americans who went to bed last night fearing the worst and have woken up this morning horrified by Donald Trump's one big ugly bill that will hurt everyday Americans and rewards billionaires with massive tax breaks that will serve to devastate the social safety net and explode our nation's debt. And so I want to tell a few stories on behalf of our nation's veterans who've also written to us to share their concerns with this one big ugly bill. Victoria from Arizona wrote to us, Mr. Speaker, said, "My husband and I are patriots. We are both Army veterans who were disabled as a result of our service. We have 5 children and run a small electrical contracting business. We live on a fixed income and, like most families, have struggled with rising costs. One of our sons is adopted. He is a wonderful, loving 7-year-old who has autism and ADHD. He qualifies for Medicaid because he was adopted, and it has been the saving grace for his health and well-being. Medicaid is the reason we were able to get his formal diagnosis of his autism and ADHD. It also covers his regular doctor's visits and dental care. We use Medicaid to access in-home therapy for him, and it was a huge help. Slashing Medicaid will have especially dire consequences for rural communities like ours. Forcing hospitals to close. Health resources are already slim in our area. And then this Army veteran writes, President Trump is causing enormous stress and hardship for families like mine. He and his billionaire friends don't need more tax breaks. It's outrageous. The last thing we should even be considering is cutting Medicaid. These programs are lifelines. We agree with you, Victoria. She lives in Arizona's 6th Congressional District. District, Mr. Speaker, currently represented by Congressman Juan Ciscomani. Troy, another veteran, lives in California, Mr. Speaker. Lives in a district currently represented by Jay Obernolte. That's California's 23rd congressional district, I believe. He writes to us and says, I was in the U.S. Army and went to Kosovo in 2001, Iraq in 2003, and 2005. I depend on the VA as I am too disabled to work. I depend on VA health care. My children are now on Medicaid. I have worked from when I was 14 years old to 42. I am suffering from long COVID. And until I can return to work, I need help from the American people. I have had your backs. Time for you to cover my back, writes Troy. Mr. Speaker, I need NIH's help. Now is the time to stand up for all Americans. Stop the assault on the VA, NIH, Medicaid, and the rest of Americans. We agree with you, Troy. It's time to stop the assault on the American people. Stop the assault that is represented in this one big, ugly bill. Christy, another veteran, wrote to us and says, I was drafted in 1970. My choice was incarceration or militarization. So I enlisted in the Navy and became a Navy corpsman serving on the USS Long Beach, CGN 9, and her Marine detachment, where I was assigned to the 3rd Marines, 1st Medical Battalion. I was blessed. I lived through 2 tours, giving medical care to my shipmates. Every other day, I was assigned to flight ops to transfer or pick up the wounded and dead Marines from shore to ships waiting offshore about 8 miles. I hated the smells of war. This veteran writes, death and misery were my constant companions. The war left me unsettled, mentally and morally corrupt. For 50 years, I have suffered with my PTSD, which went undiagnosed for years. After 12 years of VA therapy and working hard for my soul to be repaired, I find myself living alone and isolating from others. And I am one of the lucky ones, thanks to the care I have received from the VA. Veterans pouring out their heart and their soul, sharing their anxiety with all of us, urging this Congress to do something, to stand up on behalf of the veterans who are going to be hurt by this one big ugly bill, devastated by this one big ugly bill. We also heard, Mr. Speaker, from Timothy, who I believe may have written to us from the Commonwealth of Kentucky. He says, "My name is Timothy. And for the past 5 years, I have worked at the Department of Housing and Urban Development in field policy and management, a Department of Housing and Urban Development that was once led so ably by our former colleague, Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, and now has been taken in a very different direction." Timothy writes, "In this role, I've educated the community about HUD's programs such as FHA loans and housing counseling that allow people to purchase homes, affordable rental housing that help people pay their rent, and homeless services that help people find shelter and leave the streets. I have worked with internal data that focused on improving our programs. Most recently, I worked with a team that hired people from housing authorities and Job Corps with the goal of providing people a career and a way off government assistance. Those incredible people, along with myself, have been fired by Elon Musk's Doge. My entire professional career, I've taken jobs that I considered bigger than me. I served in the military, both enlisted and as an officer. I deployed. And I'm now a disabled vet with a rating of 90%. After the military, I focused on giving back and challenging myself in a way while continuing a job that was bigger than myself, so I joined the Peace Corps. Served in Ukraine for years, working as a youth development volunteer. Now as a HUD employee, I'm being fired by an unelected official and being called lazy by my president. I want to know why Elon Musk has this power and authority and why our elected officials are not doing more to stop it. I have served this country and the government my entire life because I love my country. Why is this happening? Tim writes to us. That is such an important question, Mr. Speaker. Why is this happening in the United States of America? Why are we living in a country where this administration has launched an all-out assault on veterans in the United States of America, firing veterans like Tim in the United States of America, jeopardizing services from the VA, earned benefits that these veterans are entitled to because of their extraordinary service. Men and women in uniform who serve this country, Mr. Speaker, benefits that they've earned, and now find themselves in the legislative line of fire from their own government, their own country, and stand to be hurt in such an extraordinary way by this extreme Republican budget, this one big, ugly bill. We're here on the House floor, Mr. Speaker, to say to Tim and every single veteran who put on the uniform, every single man and woman who served this country, we will not abandon you in your hour of need. Right. We're going to stand up for every single veteran in this great country and make sure that the veterans of the United States of America are treated with the dignity and respect that you deserve. That is our promise to each and every veteran in the United States of America, and that's why, Mr. Speaker, we stand in strong opposition to Donald Trump's one big ugly bill. An all-out assault here in the United States of America, an extraordinary assault. An assault on the economy, an assault on our veterans, an assault on farm country, an assault on health care, an assault on nutritional assistance. And of course, this one big ugly bill and the Trump administration, I wish it was not so. Because at the beginning of this Congress, Mr. Speaker, I stood right where you stand right now and said in my first remarks to this Congress and the American people that as Democrats, we were prepared to find common ground on any issue to make a difference in the lives of the American people we all represent. But then, Mr. Speaker, beginning on January 20th, a flood of extremism, the likes of which have never before been seen in the United States of America, has been unleashed on the American people. An all-out assault on the American way of life. An assault on small businesses that is underway here in the United States of America. We should all recognize that small businesses represent the heart and soul of the American economy. And if we're going to stand up for any group of people here in the United States of America, in addition to our veterans, our men and women in uniform, and I'm proud that I stand here as the son of someone who once wore the uniform. My father, he's in heaven right now. Marlon Jeffries grew up in Newark. His nickname was Pudding. One of my regrets is that I never got to ask him, how did he get the nickname Pudding? But he left Newark as a high school graduate and put the uniform on, enlisted in the Air Force, and served in Germany during the Cold War. We have to stand up for our veterans, stand up for small businesses. And we've heard a lot throughout this process about concerns from small business entrepreneurs here in the United States of America. Heard from Mercedes, lives in the great state of Colorado. Mercedes writes, "My husband and I are the owners of a small business. Without the ACA, my family would not be able to afford health insurance. My daughter also receives free dental coverage as a result of the ACA. I still have major issues with our healthcare system, but at least we have health insurance. My mother, who is retired, also receives benefits from Medicaid in addition to her Medicare. She would not be able to afford health insurance or dental insurance due to the fact she lives on a fixed income. Any cuts to these programs would be detrimental to our health and welfare as a family." I want to thank Mercedes for reaching out and sharing her story, because it helps to put to bed the lie that's been told, Mr. Speaker, by some people in this town. That the people, the everyday Americans who are participating in, have access to programs like the Affordable Care Act, are unworthy, aren't hardworking American taxpayers. They are hardworking American taxpayers. A group of people that real leaders in this country, beginning in modern American history, as I illustrated earlier from President Franklin Delano Roosevelt all the way through our most recent president, who we served with in the last Congress, have recognized that we have a sacred obligation to stand up for everyday Americans who are struggling right now, including our small business entrepreneurs, the heart and soul of the American economy who right now are dealing with such economic uncertainty because of the erratic, reckless, and dangerous Trump tariffs that have unleashed so much chaos and uncertainty, raising costs for small business owners all across the country, undermining their ability to fully achieve their entrepreneurial dreams. This is not who we should be in the United States of America. Small business owners under assault by this administration. And it's a target on the back of many of these small business owners as a result of this one big ugly bill. Janice wrote to us. She's from the great state of Michigan, the heartland of our country. So thankful to all the members of the Michigan delegation and what they represent. Janice, however, she resides, Mr. Speaker, in the 7th Congressional District, represented by Congressman Tom Barrett. Says that small business owner, mother, ACA recipient in Michigan, who recently spoke about how Trump's tariffs would potentially force her to close her business, which has given her family a livelihood for a decade and helped put 2 children through college. I just don't understand why Trump thinks putting tariffs will help American businesses. It's not. She writes, it's going to decimate us. People like us will be hit the hardest. But then Janice shows the great resolve of the American people, the great spirit of resilience of the American people, the refusal to run away from difficult circumstances. Janice writes, people like us will be hit the hardest. But, Janice then writes, I refuse to call it quits. I won't give in to him. Janice, neither will House Democrats. Not now, not ever. We will never give in to this type of extremism as being unleashed on the American people. We will continue to stand up for you. One last small business owner that I'd like to mention. So many who've written to us, whose stories I want to be able to share, but let me perhaps go back to the Big Apple, the great state of New York. But let me also say to the American people, one of the ways in which we've received all of these stories, and we urge you to continue to share these stories from all across the land. You can share your story with us at democraticleader.house.gov/share your story. democraticleader.house.gov/share your story. We want to hear from the American people as to how we can best represent your interests on this day and on all days moving forward, because your stories are powerful. Your stories will continue to give us the resolve to fight for an America that's fair and just, an America where every single person can afford to live the good life. Good paying job, good housing, good health care, good retirement, and of course a good education for your children. That's not too much to ask in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Work hard, play by the rules, and every single American should be able to afford to live the good life. But we know that in this country, far too many people are living paycheck to paycheck. Far too many small business entrepreneurs living paycheck to paycheck. And justifiably expect better from this government. We should be working hard in a bipartisan way to make their life better, not unleashing shock, awe, and pain on the American people. That's what this one big ugly bill will do. Devastate everyday Americans. Linda writes to us, a small business owner. I believe she's from the North Country. Lives in New York's 21st Congressional District, Mr. Speaker. Linda's a flower farmer and flower importer in upstate New York. Small business has been impacted by Trump's tariffs on products being imported from Western Europe, the Netherlands, I believe. The economic strain and uncertainty imposed by the tariffs on small business owners operating on slim margins has caused Linda and her customers to incur additional expenses. Linda tells us, Mr. Speaker, everything was going really well until the tariffs. And now she worries the business will go bankrupt and be forced to close if the tariffs stay in place. How is it that we're living in America where President Trump, Mr. Speaker, and House Republicans promised to address the high cost of living in the United States, promised to lower costs on day one. But costs aren't going down, they're going up. And as a result of these Trump tariffs, are now at risk of experiencing thousands of dollars per year in additional costs. And there is nothing in this one big ugly bill that is going to meaningfully make the lives of everyday Americans, of hardworking American taxpayers, of working class folks, of middle class folks, of all those Americans who aspire to be part of the middle class, of the poor and the sick and the afflicted. Nothing in Donald Trump's one big ugly bill that will meaningfully make their life more affordable. An all-out assault on the economy We're dealing with an all-out assault on health care, on Medicaid, on the Affordable Care Act, on the Children's Health Insurance Program. All-out assault on the care, Mr. Speaker, being provided by Planned Parenthood, the medical care being provided by Planned Parenthood that is jeopardized in this very bill. All-out assault on hungry children, on hungry veterans, and on hungry seniors, millions of people who will lose their nutritional assistance, will go hungry. Food is being ripped out of their mouths by this one big, ugly bill. Mr. Speaker, that so many of my Republican colleagues seem prepared to support, notwithstanding their prior statements on the record to the contrary. All-out assault on veterans, an all-out assault represented in this bill on small business owners and entrepreneurs who are the heart and soul of our economy. And this bill also represents an all-out assault on law-abiding immigrant families. And Mr. Speaker, we're going to tell their stories as well. We're going to tell their stories. We're going to tell their stories. Because what's happening in this country, an all-out assault on law-abiding immigrant families, is unconscionable, unacceptable, and it's un-American. Because this is a country that should continue to pride itself as a nation anchored in the rule of law, and at the same time, a nation anchored in our journey as one of immigrants from all over the world. And we should never abandon that journey. We're approaching the 249th birthday of this great country, this exceptional country. And I believe, and we can go directly, if necessary, Mr. Speaker, to the words that were initially issued by Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence. And he went through a whole series of indictments against the king. That America, 13 colonies, which became the 13 states, were working hard to break free from. I mentioned earlier the Declaration of Independence, and of course some of the aspirational aspects of it. There are really two parts, as I can tell. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm thankful for the constitutional scholars that serve in this Congress. No one more constitutional and more scholarly than my friend and colleague, the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin, who continues to lead the charge, standing up for the Constitution here in the United States of America. But as I read the Declaration of Independence, there seem to be two parts to it. There's the aspirational part, Mr. Speaker, of the Declaration of Independence. Of course, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal,